of Christ. Last time we talked about his attributes, okay? And then we talked about things that are ascribed to him, like he's the creator, he's the light. Now, in the attributes was a review for us because we already went over that in theology proper. But there's two theological terms that we're getting ready to speak about that are many times misleading, but they are simple. I'm going to sound redundant. I'm going to say stuff over and over and over because in this, we're going to talk about what is called the hypostatic union. And the other second thing, as we're getting ready to, with the second part, it'll be kenosis. All right, so number 5. Number 5 is hypostatic union. Hypostatic is spelled Hypostatic. Union of Christ. Hypostatic union of Christ. Let's see. The term hypostatic union is much easier than it sounds, but the concept is as profound as anything in theology. Let's go with the meaning. Hypostatic union may be defined as the second person, which is the pre-incarnated Christ. Pre-incarnated is P-R-E-I-N-C-A-R-N-A-T-E. Came and took himself a human nature. He took on a human nature. And you can edit that. Okay. Start from the beginning.
No, you could continue.
Okay. So within this is the hypostatic union. So he took on a human nature, but he's forever deity. That is the key part. He took on a human flesh, but at the same time, it does not diminish his deity. He's truly human. This is the key. United in one person. So we have two natures. We got the human nature and what? We have the deity. We got two natures that makes up one person, which is the second person in the Trinity. Now, even though I'm going to explain this, I'm going to humbly tell you I don't understand it. Because how can he be the bread of life? Okay? Hey, pause that. This hypostatic union, we have the deity and we have the humanity. He always been deity, then he took on humanity. So the Word of God became flesh. Well, the two natures of Christ are inseparable, united without mixture or loss of separate identity. Now, as I was explaining, is he fed 5,000, right? That was deity. But yet he hungered. He told the woman at the well, I'm the living water, but he thirsted. So we see in his deity, he's able to do the impossible, but in the human nature, he still thirsted and was tired. Remember, when he was on the lower part of the ship, everybody be like, oh, when Jesus Christ would sleep on the lower part of the ship, it was because his deity, he was not worried about that. No. After a long journey, he was tired. And he woke up, his human nature woke up because he was tired. But when he spoke, what did the deity do? Hush the wind. But it's two natures but one. Now, the adjective that comes from the original is hupateus, which is the word appears 4 times in the New Testament, maybe mostly memorable of Hebrews 1 and 3, where Jesus said to be the radiance of the glory of God, which is the exact imprint of his nature. Remember, we just went over that in Hebrews 1 and 3. He upholds all things. But remember, I told you the key is he is the express radiance. He is the original replica, the original imprint. So what was happening in that day? Remember what Jesus said? Render Caesar what is Caesar. Render God what is God. But he asked them, whose imprint is on that coin? That's the same thing that is saying in Hebrews 1. Who imprint is this? Who is his imprint? Is it of man or is it of God? But notice that imprint in essence was of God. He did not lose his deity, where Jesus said to be the radiance and the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature. He never lost that. It did not demise. It was not depleted. Here the author of Hebrew uses the word reference to the oneness of God, both the Father and the Son, having the same nature or the same essence. Jesus is the exact imprint of his nature. However, in the early church discussion, Greek thinkers tried to find agreeable terms with those who spoke in Latin. The word hupates came in to denote not the sameness in the Godhead, God one essence, but distinction, the three persons. So it began to be used to refer to something like English word person. So this is talking about his person. When we talk about the hypostatic union, you're talking about his person. So here it is, two natures have come to be one person. The personal union of Jesus Christ, two natures. So hypostatic union may sound like a fancy word in English, but it is a pretty simple term. Hypostatic means personal. The hypostatic union is a personal union of Jesus Christ's two natures. So when we talk about Christ, when he became flesh, was that just temporary? No. Being that he was deity, once he took on that form, he took on that form forever. Jesus has two complete natures, one fully human and one fully divine. What the doctrine of the hypostatic union teaches is that these two natures are united in one person. And what does it make up? The God-man. Why do we put God first? Because his deity always exists. Jesus is not two persons. Because a lot of people say, well, when he was on the cross, he was praying to his divine side. No. Yeah, there's some crazy heresy out here. He is one person. The hypostatic union is joining of the divine and the human in one person of Jesus. When he was praying from his humanity side. Okay? Just as much as we, from our humanity side, must depend on God. And he say, I must go. What must go? His body can go, but his deity is always present. And he say, if I don't go, then I can't come back. So what? He come back and he's omnipresent with us. But yet the body is what? In heaven, making intercession for us day and night. Don't ask me to explain it like detail. I'm only explaining the Bible in theological terms, but it's complicated. It is. To have a human nature and a deity. So what is this significance? Why bother with this seemingly fancy term? What good is it to know about the hypostatic union at the end of the day? The term can go, but the concept behind the term infinitely is precious. It's worshipful. It's mind-stretching. Is it not stretching our mind right now? It's stretching my mind. It is immeasurably sweet and awe-inspiring to know that Jesus' two natures are perfectly united in, notice this, his one person. Jesus is not divided. He is not two people. He is one person. The Chaldean Creed states that his two natures are without confusion, without change, without division, without separation. Jesus is one. This means Jesus is one focal point for worship. And as Jonathan Edwards, a great preacher, said, in this one person, God-man, we find an admirable conjunction of a diverse excellency. Even though you have the human who came and was deity, we have one person to worship who died for our sins. Isn't that excellent? So, because of this hypostatic union, one person union, Jesus Christ exhibit unparalleled magnificence. No one person satisfy the complete loneliness of human heart like the God-man. So what it's saying is, worship is due to him because of what he done. Taking on a human nature, dying on our behalf. So within this hypostatic union, A was the meaning. I gave you the meaning. B, explanation. The explanation. Two natures of Christ are inseparable, united without mixture or loss of separate identity. B, explanation. The two natures of Christ are inseparable. Inseparable is spelled I-N-S-E-P-A-R-A-B-L-Y. Without mixture or loss. Now, when Christ became a man, he did not lose his identity. Let me give you 3 facts. You can name them 1, 2, and 3 up on the B. Number 1, Christ had 2 distinct natures. And what are those 2 natures? Humanity and deity. So Christ had 2 distinct natures, humanity and deity. Number 2, there is no mixture or intermingling of the 2 natures. Remember I said when the body was tired, it never touched Christ's deity where he was exalted, where he couldn't do nothing. Remember at the well, he still was prophesying to the lady. She said, you got to be the Messiah. So there is no mixture or intermingling of the 2 natures. So if he's hungry, guess what? He can still break 2 fishes and 5 loaves. Number 3, although he have 2 natures, Christ is 1 person. That's the summation of it all. Although he has 2 natures, Christ is 1 person. 2 natures, but Christ is 1 person. Do not let people break you into polytheism or Gnosticism. Gnosticism is to say he could not have been God because flesh is evil. So therefore we have Colossians 2:9, in him, in his body, dwelt the full God, all his attributes. Okay, C. What are the results? Both natures are necessary for redemption. The results, both natures are necessary for redemption. Let me expound on that now that you've written that down. As a man, Christ could represent man and die. What? Hebrews chapter 4. He was tempted in all areas as we were, but yet without what? Sin. What was tempted? The flesh, not the deity. As God, the death of Christ could have infinite value. This was not just an ordinary man that died. This was just not an ordinary person. Why? Because we were not bought with what? Silver or gold, but the rich red royal blood of Christ. So it made infinite value. So what is this hypostatic union? As a result, it's sufficient to prove redemption for sins of those in the world that will believe on him. It's sufficient to prove redemption, that means to buy us back, for the sins of those that are in the world to believe in him. So we went over the hypostatic union of Christ. But now we want to talk about kenosis. Kenosis. Kenosis is spelled K-E-N-O-S-I-S. And once you have written that down, turn over to Philippians chapter 2. And that's where that kenosis came from. But a lot of people misunderstand Philippians chapter 2. When you got Philippians chapter 2, we're going to start at verse 6. And notice what Philippians 2:6. Who being in the form of what? God. That's a key point right there. Thought it not robbery to be what? Equal with who? God. That's good. But made himself of what?
No reputation.
That's the key word. Made himself of no reputation. How did he empty out himself? When he came down here to earth, no one was worshiping him. What did he say? You're the carpenter's son. You're Joseph's son. You're just a mere man. Let's see if he called on Elijah. They had no respect for him, did he? At all. Why? Because when he emptied out himself, when he came down from heaven to earth, he was no reputation. So what happens? When he took on the form of a man and a slave, he veiled his glory. Did he not? So being that he veiled his glory, he did not have the worship that was due to him. The kenosis problem involved the interpretation of Philippians 2:7. He emptied himself. Now a lot of people think that when he's talking about he emptied himself, he's talking about that he got rid of his deity. That's not what he's talking about. He's saying he got rid of all his honor, all the glory, all the worship that people usually give to him in heaven. But when he got here on earth, they was not really worshiping him and giving him due honor, were they? He did not surrender absolute attributes in any sense. And we just saw that, didn't we? In part 3 and 4, we saw what? He got the attributes. We saw that he got the possession, that he's the creator and he's the life. So we saw those things. He still had his deity. He was always perfect, holy, just, merciful, truthful, and faithful, even while here on earth. Christ took himself an additional nature. What was he first? He was first God. Then he became man. The context of Philippians 2:7 proves that the best solution to the Kenosis problem, the empty was not of subtraction, meaning that it took away from his deity, but it was an addition. It added to him. He'd never been a man before, but here it is, he takes on a man. And I'm going to go into some explanation of the Kenosis, and then just like I did with the hypostatic union, we'll go over those 3 points that summate all of it. So I'm going to sound redundant over and over like I did the hypostatic union, because I believe if we continue to repetitiously hear it, it'll sink in, and then I'll go into the summation, those 3 points that what I just said over and over, then I said in those 3 points, okay? All right, kenosis is the Greek word from Philippians 2:7, translated made nothing. It was Jesus did to himself. He made himself nothing. And becoming incarnated God, not only accommodating himself to human weakness, he buries his glory. Notice this. He buries his glory under veil after veil so that it is impossible for flesh and blood to recognize him. Remember what Isaiah 53? Let's turn over Isaiah 53. Keep your finger in Philippians 2, because we're going to come back in our summation. Isaiah 53, the first few verses, it already prophesied that the Messiah would not be recognized. Isaiah 53. It already stated that the Messiah, who have believed our report. Isaiah 53:1. And whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? You see that? Who is the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before as a tender plant, as a root out of dry ground. Notice, dry ground. And he have no form of comeliness. Notice that. He don't got no beauty. He's not handsome like David. And when we shall see him, there will be no beauty that he would be desirable to look on. Make sure you turn right. That's Isaiah 53, verse 1 through 2. Continue with the kenosis. There's a deliberate contrast instead with the same word being used both places. Jesus, we talk about kenosis, is in very nature God. That is, Christ possesses the image of God and the likeness of God. Now we saw that in Philippians chapter 2, verse 6. And the glory of God. Everything that makes God God, Christ is that. What we saw in part 3 and 4, attributes, and he possessed ascribed to him. Everything that makes the angels worship God, Christ has it. When he's Alpha, Omega, the beginning and the end, he's glory, he's deity, he's omnipresence. These are the things that make the angels worship him. But Paul is now saying that Christ then becomes a real servant. So look at Philippians chapter 2, verse 7. But made himself of no reputation, took up on him a form of a what? Servant, or that's the word doulos, is slave, and was made in the likeness of what? Man. So he takes on humanity. As surely and as truly as he is God, to the lordship he adds servanthood. Remember what Mark chapter 10, verse 45? It said, I did not come to be served, but I came to what? To serve. Amen. His identity is the Lord, the master and sovereign of the universe. But he is the one who is an addition. What addition do we add? Servanthood. Philippians chapter 2. But he made himself of no what? No reputation. Or nevertheless, he emptied out himself. What did he empty out? Did he empty out his deity? No. He emptied out and the honor, the glory, and all that worship and stuff that was being brought to him in heaven. Not of the fullness of grace which was laid upon him from everlasting, for with this he appeared when he was made flesh and dwelt among men, nor of the perfection of his divine nature. This is the key. Which were not in the least diminished. Remember what I said? That was not depleted. His deity was not downplayed. If he wanted to walk on water, he walked on water. He wanted to heal somebody. He wanted to forgive somebody. He wanted to raise somebody from the dead. Even in that human flesh, he could do it. So his deity was not subtracted. The summation of the human nature, for all the fullness of the Godhead dwelt in him what? Bodily. Colossians 2:9. Though he took that which he had not done before. What did he not do before? Take on a human nature. He lost nothing of what he had. The glory of his divine nature was covered. It was out of sight. The only time he revealed it was what? When he went on the mountain of transfiguration. That veil could not hold it anymore. He displayed his glory to what? Peter, James, and John. And though some rays and beams of it broke through his work. Remember what I told you earlier about his work? Of him healing the diseases, calming the sea. Those type of things display his works and miracles. Yet his glory as only of the begotten of the Father was beheld only by a few. And who are those few? Peter, James, and John, when they went on the mountain and what? The transfiguration. The minds of the far greater part were blinded, and the hearts hardened. What? Because they did not believe that he was what? That's right. They did not believe that he was Christ. He said, you got eyes, but you cannot what? See. You got ears, but you cannot hear. Even his disciples, show us the Father. And what did he say? How long have I been with you? That I not display my deity. Is basically what he's saying. And they saw no form of comeliness. Remember what we just read in Isaiah 53. In him to desire him, the form of God in which he was hidden from them. And they reputed him as a mere man. If you be the Son of God, take yourself off the throne. But he voluntarily did this. He was subject to all authorities here. But he had infinitely great glories. As he did not assume deity. Here it is. He did not, like when Pilate, when all the laws of the land, he rendered Caesar what was Caesar. You see what I'm saying? So within that, he didn't like what they thought in their mind. He did not become this Messiah that overthrew the Roman government. But what he was? He was subject. He obeyed the laws of the land just like everybody else. But here it is. He was not thrust down into the lowest estate by force as the angels that sinned when they affected to be as God were drove from the seat of glory and cast down into hell. Like the fallen angels, when they rebelled against God, they were driven out of heaven, right? Christ voluntarily came out of heaven. And when man through like in the nation, what the Satan was instigating, remember? God said don't eat from the tree. What did Satan do? Instigate with man was desire the same. So we desire the same thing just like Satan and stuff. And what did God end up doing to us? He didn't drive us out of heaven, but he drove us out of the garden. He was turned out of Eden and became like the beast that perished. But this was Christ's own act and deed. So what I'm just explaining to you is number one, Satan and all of the fallen angels, they were driven out of heaven. Number two, man was driven out of the Garden of Eden. But Christ voluntarily came from heaven to earth. Wow. He willingly descended that he would ascend to lay aside as it were his glory for a while. Notice this. To have it veiled and hidden and reckon anything a mere man. Yea, here it is to have the devil mock him. to have men reject him. He did all that. And we're going to get what was the purpose. Oh, wondrous humanity. But not only humanity, what this Philippian text is showing, his humility. Because I know a lot of times we're looking at the humanity part, but him becoming a man, that was humility. That is astounding. And why would God do that? The Lord Jesus abandoned sovereign position. Why? For every step was that by which he became the child in the manger, condescending, involved in, and that beyond that image. Not just the manger. Yet it was only the beginning of a long downward journey. Through him being homeless, he said birds have what? A nest? Yes. But the Son of Man have nowhere to lay his head. Poverty, exaltation. Remember, he was tired. Shame. He was naked on the cross. He was in pain. What? In Gethsemane. And guess what? It ended up in Calvary. That's what all of that he went through. That's what that was for. But look at Philippians chapter 2, verse 7 and 8. But notice this. But made himself of no reputation. But notice this. There are 4 phases in Philippians chapter 2, verse 7 through 8. Number 1, taking on the form of a slave. So you see that? That's the first thing that he did, not only in humanity, but in humility. Number 2, made himself in the likeness of men. And number 3, being found in the appearance of a man. Do you see that in that verse? So verse 8, and being found in a fashion as a man. And the last part of verse 8, he humbled himself and became obedient to the death, even the death of the what? Of the cross. Y'all see that in Philippians chapter 2, verse 8? So the first 2 is in verse 7. Taking on the form of a slave is in verse 7. Being made in the likeness of men at the end of verse 7. Philippians chapter 2, verse 7. Philippians chapter 2, verse 8. Being found in appearance or fashion of a man. And number 4, at the end of verse 8, he humbled himself and became obedient even to the death of the cross. Now when we look at John 3:16 next time, will we linger on these facts, all that he went through to do what? To be obedient. Don't just, for God so loved the world, they gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes on him shall not perish but have everlasting life. We go so fast through those verses. But if we understand he became a slave in the likeness of a man, found in the appearance of a man, he was not handsome. And why did he do all this? He humbled himself and became obedient, even to the death of the cross. So this kenosis, the emptying of Christ, was taken on an addition nature, a human nature, with its limitations. So when he took on that body, when he got tired, what? He was tired. When he got thirst, he was thirsty. When he got hungry, he was hungry. Those are limitations. His deity was never surrendered. So within the kenosis, this is what I'm trying to show you about the conclusion and the summation. The emptying of Christ was taken on an addition. So it was nothing subtracted from him. So what was the addition? The human nature. But within the human nature brought humility. A human nature with limitation. What was the limitation? He hungry, he thirsty. He needed somebody to give him a borrowed tomb because he didn't have no burial ground or plot. He needed somebody to have somewhere for him to stay. He needed somebody to show hospitality for the upper room for the Passover. Do you see that? But his deity was never surrendered. So a lot of people will say that he had those natures, but he was 2 persons. That's wrong. Then some people will hype up his deity, but downplay his humanity. That would make him a superhuman, like Superman. then they'll upbuild his humanity and downplay his deity. When they say he emptied out himself, they trying to say that he gave up his deity. But within that, we got to understand that even though he became a man, that was an addition, but it never ever depleted his deity.